Hello everybody and welcome back to Stepmum Space Listener Questions with me, Katie South. Each week I take one of your questions and we talk it through here, sharing not only my thoughts but yours as well. Everything is anonymised, but the emotional reality and the stories behind are very real. Before we get into this week's question, I just want to say a thank you. So many of you have taken the time to message me to tell me you're finding these mini episodes helpful, and I really, really appreciate that. Also, thank you to those of you who take the time to send in your questions and also your answers and experiences as well. This week's question comes from Harriet, who says, "Whenever my stepkids come, I feel like I can't be myself. I've had so many complaints from the ex about ridiculous things that I'm constantly on edge. I'm so fed up with feeling like this. What can I do?" Now, I want to start by saying, if you felt this, you are absolutely not alone. Many stepmums have experienced criticism from the ex. Sometimes it's a reasonable request, like keeping bedtimes roughly aligned across homes. That does happen, and it can be a place of genuine collaborative co-parenting efforts. However, it often isn't that. Often it's criticism about things that are deeply personal to you and your home, or frankly, absurd. Your home decor, your tone, your friendships, how you spend your weekends. I've heard so many of these things. I've even heard complaints about grammar. Yes, grammar, genuinely. So Harriet, I really, really hear how worn down you sound. Feeling on edge and unable to be yourself is one of the most draining states to be in, especially in your own home, which is supposed to be your emotionally safe place. What you're describing here, Harriet, is what happens to your nervous system when your behaviour feels like it's being reported on and when ordinary moments start to feel reviewable. I know a lot of women listening will recognise this. You stop being natural and you start being careful. You edit yourself. You monitor your tone. You think 3 steps ahead before you say anything, not because you're doing something wrong, but because you're trying to avoid potential fallout. But really, living in that level of vigilance and self-policing is exhausting. And when I shared Harriet's question with you guys on Instagram, the responses came in straight away. Lots of "same here," or words to that effect. Chloe said, "Same for me at the moment, always stressed about saying the wrong thing." Amara said, "I just had to stop letting her voice live in my house." And Ella wrote, "Don't let her into your home through comments or anything else. Easier said than done, but that's the bit you have to let go of. I've been there and it sucks. Coaching helped me lose that level of anxiety." And many of you said some version of "boundaries saved my mental health." So from a stepfamily lens, what's often happening here is this. When complaints repeatedly travel from the other household into yours, especially about small or subjective things, it creates a kind of emotional surveillance effect. And even if no one says, "we're watching you," your system feels watched. And when humans feel watched and judged, we don't relax, we perform. You stop being yourself and you start being careful, tiptoeing. Often I hear walking on eggshells. And the problem is, careful isn't sustainable in relationships. Children don't build secure bonds with a performed version of you. They build them with the real one. There's also something important around authority. Someone being unhappy with your personality or your tone doesn't automatically make them the authority on how you should be. Discomfort and wrongdoing are not the same thing. Preference and harm are not the same thing. So if every complaint that you get from the ex starts to feel like a ruling, your stress will never come down because the rules are going to keep moving, right? And so what most stepmums do next is very understandable, but it tends to backfire. You might recognise some of yourself in this. You try to eliminate all the complaints. You over-adjust, you over-function, you walk on eggshells, you replay every interaction, you foresee every conversation and plan what you may or may not say. You look to your partner for constant reassurance that you are, quote unquote, behaving okay. Now that doesn't create safety. It creates anxiety, resentment, and eventually burnout. So what helps are a few quieter shifts. You can find these in the show notes if you want to come back to them. So firstly, separate feedback from authority. Somebody can complain without being in charge. Secondly, agree a filter with your partner. not every complaint needs to land on you, right? Dad can receive, assess, and hold some of that without passing the full emotional weight onto you. That's part of his role. Third, decide your home standards in advance. Calmly, together. How do we speak here? What are our norms? What actually matters to us? When you're aligned as a couple, stepmums feel less singled out and less exposed. Fourth, in the moment, when you feel that spike of, oh no, what if this gets reported back? Ground yourself with something simple and true. You can pick the language that works for you. Some examples could be, this is discomfort, not danger. I'm allowed to be a real person in my own home. Not everyone has to approve of me. And you can use these not as a chant or a mantra per se, just as a gentle reset for yourself and your nervous system. And 5, reduce overexposure to the complaint channel. You don't need to see every message, every criticism, every opinion. Psychological boundaries matter just as much as practical ones. And I want to say this gently. If you feel like you cannot be yourself at all when the children are there, something in the setup needs adjusting. Becoming a stepfamily, blending families, whatever the language is you want to use, will stretch you and it will challenge you, but it shouldn't erase you. You're allowed to exist as a full human in your own home, not a sanitized version. So if this is where you are right now, constantly on edge and walking on eggshells, here's the truth. You're allowed to be natural, you're allowed to take up space in your own home, and you're allowed to stop performing and start relaxing. Not only are you allowed to do all these things, they're really important for you to do for your own well-being. I know it's really easy for me to tell you these things, and it's harder sometimes to put it into action, and you don't have to solve this perfectly to start feeling better, okay? You just need to stop handing all of the emotional authority to that outside voice that isn't in your home. So thank you so much to everybody who shared their experiences on this one. It really does help others feel less alone. And if you try any of this, I'd love to hear how it goes. And if this episode hit close to home, that's usually a sign it's time for a bit more support on it. You don't have to keep white-knuckling your way through stepfamily stress on your own. You can go to stepmumspace.com to see what support's available, or message me directly and we'll figure out what would be most useful for you. You'll find all the details in the show notes. And if you've got a listener question you want me to cover, you can DM me on the socials at Stepmum Space. We'll be back next week with another listener question. Till then, take care.